Vamos a dar ahora paso a la profesora SHIKHA. Vamos con un poco de anticipación. No sé si Sika está ya preparada. Hello, Sika. Welcome.
Hello,
Em,
thank you.
la profesora SHIKHA es una arquitecta con una enorme experiencia en trabajos de protección, musealización y recuperación del patrimonio. Ha sido asesora de UNESCO en muchísimas oficinas y muchísimos gobiernos de, de África, Malasia, Singapur, Indonesia. Es consulta de la UNESCO en Nueva Delhi, representante del Ministerio de Cultura de la India en el Comité Internacional del Patrimonio Mundial y es vicepresidenta de ICOFORT y fue una de las redactoras, junto con algunos de nosotros, de la Carta de las Directrices de ICOMOS para la fortificación y el patrimonio militar. Y como digo, es una persona de mucha experiencia que está además detrás de una de las primeras candidaturas de patrimonio fortificado que se están trabajando en el marco de la UNESCO y por tanto su experiencia en este caso va a ser muy interesante. Muchas gracias, Sika. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. I hope my screen is visible. I'm Shikha Jain, as Fernando has already introduced. I'm Vice President of Fortifications and um, Military Heritage Committee. I'm also involved with the Cultural Landscape Committee, and that's why my research focus is largely military landscapes. I'm very thankful to the Spanish Cultural Heritage Institute today for hosting this webinar on such an important theme as the military landscapes. My presentation today is about the military landscapes of Western India. In specific, I'm going to talk about two states in India, Rajasthan and Maharashtra. If we look at fort typologies of India, as per the traditional treaties, they have been defined as the ground fort, the desert fort, the forest fort, water fort, hill fort, and a mixed fort, which could have two or more natural terrains used for defense. So the Indian traditional treaties all across India in various regional languages largely defines forts based on their landscape and terrain. And if we look at fortified landscapes of India, because India is also peninsular, so you have a number of examples where you have, from the Himalayan region from the north, where you have the highest mountains, down to south, where you have the coastal regions, you have the hill forts, forest forts, water forts, and various typologies. What I'm going to show you today are two examples. One is from the state of Rajasthan, which has a different typology across the Aravalli region or the forest range. And the second is Maharashtra, which has sea forts as well as hill forts that create a network of fortified cultural landscape. I will start with Rajasthan. You can see in this map, the region of Rajasthan, the state of Rajasthan in northwestern India is roughly the area of France as a country. And in total, it has more than 250 forts and fortified structures. And these are location of the 54 key forts. What is interesting about its terrain is that, you have the Aravalli range that you see in light brown that diagonally runs across the state and divides it into two parts. On the western side, you have the desert area, and on the eastern side, you have the hills which slope down into valleys. Because of these physiographic features, you have a variety of hill forts typology. And these are also further, the location of these forts are very important because they also controlled the trade routes, the ancient trade routes. So if we see the location of these forts on the hills, various hills across Rajasthan, they are actually linked to the land routes that they control for trading. So you can see, as per the physiographic terrain, the brown belt diagonally running in the center has largely the hill plateau fort, because that's the Aravalli range on the highest level. And the green and the blue that you see on the eastern side is largely hill water and hill forest fort or hill slope fort, which are in the valley. And on the western side, you largely have the desert area. So you also find desert forts there. We had 6 hill forts of Rajasthan inscribed as a serial nomination property in 2013, which was representative of these varied terrains in Rajasthan. And looking at the outstanding universal value that said the forts use the natural defenses offered by the landscape, hills, deserts, rivers, and dense forests across the state of Rajasthan. I'm just going to focus on one particular property here to show to you in detail how the military landscape works for one particular area. So Amer, which is one of the properties, one of the 6 hill forts inscribed on the list, you can see in the map, the red area in the center, that is the fortification, which is inscribed on World Heritage List. But the larger green area is actually the larger terrain or the
Shikha, please. Shikha, one moment.
Yeah.
You need to put on translation and put English in the language.
Okay, sorry. Let me just do this. So I need to do the translation.
Yes.
No, Shika,
Yeah.
if you go to show
Captions, is
yes.
it
So you have to select
captions?
the language you speak. You select English, and then
Oh, sorry. Yeah,
the
my
language
speaking.
with the captions, you select also English.
Is it done?
Just try to tell something to see if it's working.
So I will now show the property of Amer Fort.
Yes, it's working.
It's working?
Yeah.
Okay.
It wasn't working before. Thank you.
Sorry. So do you want me to quickly go over the previous slides, or it's fine?
Maybe you can go quickly, not to the start, but if you talk about Rajasthan, maybe
Okay.
context.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay.
So I will start with the state of Rajasthan, where you can see the location of 54 key forts. Rajasthan is a state in northwestern India, which is roughly the area of France as a country, and it has more than 250 forts. You see the key forts marked out here, and the terrain is visible because you have the Aravalli hill range, which divides Rajasthan diagonally into two, showing the desert area on the western side and the sloping hills and water bodies on the eastern side. The forts that are marked in Rajasthan are also located on very important ancient trade routes. And if we see the varying physiographic terrain, you can see the central brown belt, which has the hill plateau forts on the hill itself. And on the eastern side, you have the hill valley forts or hill slope forts and the water forts. Whereas on the western side, you have the desert, so you largely have the hill desert forts there. Among these forts, we got 6 of the hill forts inscribed as serial property in 2013. And they were recognized in their outstanding universal value for the natural defenses offered by the landscape, that is hills, deserts, rivers, and dense forest. I'm just going to explain one particular fort among these 6 hill forts, which is Amer, which was inscribed, just to show you the fortified landscape around it and how it needs to be protected. So you see the red portion in the center, which marks the property area of Amer Fort. But the larger buffer zone, which covers the green, also the purple area marked is another subsidiary fort. And the larger green covers the complete fortification of the town. This is Amer, which is inscribed on the list, and you can see how it sits on the hilly terrain, where it is set in multiple courtyards that that extend along the sloping hill, and was built from 16th to 17th century. And you can see how it sits in the valley. So it's a typically hill valley fort, which is called, as per traditional treaties of India, as a Giri Guha, which means that the main palace space would be in the valley, and it is protected by the surroundings so that it's completely enclosed. And you can see sitting on the top on the left, which is a subsidiary fort protecting and overseeing this particular Amer fort. Here is a section that shows you the location of the Jaigarh, the top fort, which has the gun foundry and which was also the treasury, largely to oversee in case of any military attack, to protect the lower fort. And here you can see Amer Fort with its surrounding terrain. So you see the fortification that runs about 7 kilometers across the ridges of the hills in the surroundings. This is another view of the same. From the Amer Fort, you can see the surrounding fortification and the watch posts that are typically Rajput feature in design. So you can see out here in the plan the triple level of fortifications that protect this particular fort. And along with two subsidiary forts, the Jaigarh and Kuntalgarh out here, which sort of are located at the topmost portion and oversee the lower Amer fort. These are the two forts that you see. On the left side is Jaigarh and on the right side is Kuntalgarh, which are on different locations overseeing Amer. And these images show the layer of fortifications on various ridges, which is the 7 kilometer spread of the fortification around the Amer fort. This is the second layer of fortification. The Jaigarh fort also has one of the largest cannons of India, which was placed out here, and it has a gun foundry, which was established there. This map created by the researcher Remy Papillot gives a very good view of how these particular forts developed. So you can see on the top black portion that is largely the Amer fort with Jaigarh. And once this Amer, which was the earlier capital, it became too congested, then it was moved down on the plains. You see the red grid plan below, which is Jaipur, the second capital of these Rajputs, and that was established in the 18th century after Amer was exhausted. So you can really see in this how the fortifications extended later to the second capital. And the fort of Jaigarh with its cannon out here, you can see this particular on the second right side, you can see Jaigarh fort point on the top where you have the cannon, and then you can see other cannon points as they are marked. How the fortified wall of Jaipur linked with the previous fortification of Amer Jaigarh, a new western side fortification of Nahargarh Fort on the west side of Jaipur city below was created, and the entire fortifications, the previous ones and the later ones of 18th century, unified as a defense system. This is the Jaipur city as we move down from Amer to the next capital. And this is now inscribed on the World Heritage List. But here you see a city on the plains, which is fortified, and you can see the construction plans that show the fortifications. Also on the south, you see a sort of a moat. Now, currently this moat is covered because with urbanization, the city has grown and this has become a road. But the walls and the gates stand till today. And this is another historic map where you can see on the west side, Nahargarh Fort that was created as a defense mechanism for Jaipur city to oversee. This is the center of Jaipur city. You can see the palace, the 7-storied palace in the middle. And you can see on top of the western range how Nahargarh Fort oversees and controls, this particular city. This is another view of the main city street, where you have the iconic Hawa Mahal that was created. And again, you can see how Nahargarh on the side hill controls the viewpoints to the city. So you can see in this grid how the 9-square grid of Jaipur, besides the fortified wall that it has, also has these 5 hills on the sides. These are marked from 1 to 6. And you can see the complete network on how these fortifications on the small hills guided, not only controlled the military defense for Jaipur, but also guided the grid iron plan on which the city was designed. These are glimpses of the various levels of fortifications around the Jaipur city, including the loopholes and the embrasures that can be seen in various parts of the fortifications. In case of the fortifications which are on the southern and western side, we also see that there were some elements of British fortification styles that were incorporated, like you see the bastions on the top right. So finally, I mean, if you see this unified structure with the layers of fortification, so you have the Amer fortified town on the north, and then you have below the Jaipur fortified city, and they function as a single unified system of fortified landscape. This shows the condition of the fortified wall around the Jaipur city. So at various points and at certain points, there are issues. The wall has actually been demolished because of urbanization, but it was with its inscription as the World Heritage City that the wall and the complete fortified landscape was recognized as part of the property and the buffer zones. So you can see the walls and the gates here, and also the background, the hill and Nahargarh forts. So currently the walls and the gates are being conserved, as you can see out here in the aerial views. And there are 9 gates which are intact and well conserved. And the city that was inscribed in 2019, they are currently working on the detailed management plan. And what you can see out here is the buffer zone that is blue. You can see it's more in north. It covers all of Nahargarh, Jaigarh, and Amer Fort. And on the right side, on the down below, and on the western side, left side, you can see that it covers the main hills that control the defense as well as the planning. So there was a specific manner in which the town planning of Jaipur was integrated along with the defense fortifications. And this military landscape is what is also recognized as part of the buffer zone so that it stays protected for future. I will now move on to the second example, which is in the state of Maharashtra, which is, you can see a coastal area as marked out here. And it has, also the ghats or the hills just next to the coast, the Konkan coast, and a very interesting formation that has led to, a very close network of fortifications. In fact, in one of the mappings, it has been mentioned in the Forts and Palaces of India, an encyclopedia, that in total, this particular state has 628 forts and fortifications. And there is a closed network that we have been able to map of 391 fortifications, which were particularly used as a complete network between the 17th to the 19th century for defense by the Maratha warrior clan. So that is a particular, like the Rajputs, who were also a warrior clan in Rajasthan. We have the Marathas in Maharashtra, and they use this network of fortifications, which is a very interesting network of sea forts along the coast with the hill forts just along the hills that actually go perpendicular. You can see the hill ranges that are going perpendicular and spreading towards the larger plateau on the right side, where you see the greens, which are the forts on the Deccan Plateau or plains. This has come up because of a very interesting formation, which is actually sort of lava that got, converted into these Western Ghats, and you have escarpments out here. So just along the Konkan coast, you have the laterite formation, and right next to the laterite formation, you also have high level laterites remains restricted to the what we call the Western Ghats, and they create very interesting escarpments. There are small narrow passages between the coast and to the ghats or the hilltops, which were the passes which were used for trading. But largely, these escarpments were used as natural defense features while locating the forts. And this particular, coastal area has been used in Indian Ocean trade routes since centuries. I mean, there is, evidence in the periplus of the Erythraean Sea, so right from the Greek period. But you see here a map of the Portuguese when they moved to India for trading and established several forts along the coast also. So you can see that this was a very happening coast with a lot of trades and exchanges. And that's why the fortifications there were very important to control all the trading routes. So on the right side, you see a very dense network of trade routes, including the primary, tertiary, and secondary forts that were controlling it. This is again a close-up where we have marked, the main trade routes and then the smaller trade routes, and how the primary forts along the coast. This coast is about 740 kilometers in stretch, and you have several along the coast itself. You have about 35 forts that are lined up, which control different creeks and trade routes along this particular area. And then these trade routes moved inside through the passes into the hilly area, and you can see we have marked how each fort was controlling two or one or more than that in terms of trade routes. Again, I'm just going to show you one or two examples amongst these, because these are several forts. We have studied 12 in detail, but in this particular case, this is one which was one of the capitals of Marathas, very well, protected with secondary and tertiary forts. So you can see here what is interesting about these forts. They are very different from the Rajasthan ones, where you have extensive styles, architectural styles, and palaces. In this case, these are very minimalistic. So these forts, like the policy of the particular ruler was to build minimum in each of the fortified area, and just use the natural terrain in a manner that it camouflages and you cannot figure out that there is a fort. So if you really look, what we see out here is one hill in the center and then three branches. But these are actually, you have the central hill that is fortified, and then the three extended branches on three sides, which are fortified separately. And this is the capital fort of Rajgarh. So if we see again, I mean, this is a close-up of the rivers, the mountains, and the passes, and also the trade routes that it was controlling, along with the other subsidiary forts. And this shows an aerial view where you can see how the ridge goes and how it was controlling, and the visual points to various other forts. Along sort of a triangulation out here of three forts that were used for watching on the capital fort of Rajgarh, which had these fortifications. So this is a history of the fort from 1490 to later on, how various changes were made in this particular fort. And out here you can see the layers of fortification as well as the gates. So you can see, the central fortification, the citadel, how it is protected by three arms. So these become independent forts in themselves. And if you close the gates out here, these were used basically for defense of the central citadel area. This is a view of the central citadel area. As you can see that there are structures above it, but they merge so well with the natural landscape. So at times you can't even make out that if it's a hill or if there is a man-made fort. It's an excellent example of, the man and nature combination to create something. Here you can see the fortified extended arm, which they call machi in the Maratha forts. And you can see triple layer of fortification out here, how it extends, for watching out. This is, a closer view of that. So there are triple layers of fortification. we have marked the fortifications in this, also the bastions that you can see at various levels, but this sketch would give you a better idea on how these fortifications worked at various levels, just to control the enemy. So there is a triple layered bastion at the end of this, as well as there is, double layer of fortification all along this particular stretch. The gates are also very interestingly arranged so as not to allow any viewing. So here you can see how the curves are used, and the first gate actually gets hidden within the bastion itself. You can see out here, that's the Pali Darwaza, whereas the next gate is ensconced between two bastions. This shows the approach from one gate into the second gate out here. And it also shows a very interesting use of terrain by the Marathas for creating these. Interestingly, the three stretches that you see of the forts are actually located at the same level. Which is not visible when you're climbing the fort or experiencing the fort. But when you look at sections, one realizes that all these three fall at the same level, though the arms are extended to in different directions. I'm also showing you another example of a sea fort. So that was the hill fort. There are several hill forts which have similar networking. And the sea forts along the coast, this is one of the important sea forts, Vijayadurg. You can see out here again how it controlled a particular creek and trade route. It was sort of a coastal fort, though it is said historically that even the fort side there was water and there was a moat out here. But later on this was filled. And even in the later period when there were fights in this fort, it was largely like a coastal fort itself. You can see the location out here and how it is controlling the inner creek area, which was also used as a trading route, and the surrounding forts, which are part of this particular network of the sea fort. It was from 1650 that this fort was strengthened, though it had earlier layers, but the Marathas strengthened it in 1650, and then there were several wars fought between the Marathas, the Portuguese, and the English, as well as there was a Dutch attack on this particular fort. So you can see all the historical narratives. There are maps also showing the particular attack by the British when the fort surrendered to the British in 1818. These are the historical maps of the fort. So you can see the layers of fortification and an additional layer that was later added in the 16th century. This is a British period map of the same fort. You can see, how the attack is sort of being planned from the land side as well as from the seaside. What is interesting about this fort is you can see out here the location of the fort and also the surrounding forts and the creeks that were part of this controlled network, and the layout with the layers of fortification. But what is really interesting about this fort is you can see the dotted portion on the left side, which is an underwater wall which was not visible. So you would have ships coming to attack the forts, but at this point they would just break down because there was a wall that was created which was not visible to anybody approaching this particular fort, and hence it was sort of a impregnable fort because of this extra defense feature that was created and not visible. This is an image from the British period. It's actually during the eclipse that it was taken. And here you can see the underwater excavations that led to the discovery of this particular underwater wall. This was done by the National Institute of Oceanography. So you can see the wall that is marked and how it was used, and also earlier remains that were found, such as the stone anchor of the grapnel that you see, the two button-like images that are visible here. So for these Maratha forts, we are creating a toolkit and conservation manual because this network is spread to such a large area that one needs to have some kind of a conservation manual which will apply to all these 391 forts which are spread across the entire state. And this is sort of an introduction to the table of contents that we are developing for this particular network of forts. And the idea is that whichever fort is being conserved, at least they are following certain policies and principles. These are the defense attributes of the hill forts that have been outlined in the manual, including, after studying of various hill forts in the region. And these are the defense attributes and geography of sea forts. So it's basically to ensure the long-term, conservation of this network. The government of Maharashtra will be adopting this manual, which will also have conservation guidelines for these defense attributes. And the policy framework for this actually looks at the ICOMOS guidelines on fortifications and military heritage at the international level. At the national level, it looks at the National Conservation Policy of the Archaeological Survey of India, which is a national body. And at the regional and contextual level, it looks at the Adane Patra, which was the traditional treatise written by the Maratha ruler Chhatrapati Shivaji, who was very focused on forts. He was known as a fort builder, and there are specific rules that he's mentioned on how to conserve and maintain the forts, or even rules about military landscape. Like he says, if one hill has a fort, then make sure that the adjoining hills are also under control and fortified. So there are several principles that sort of guide this particular aspect of fortified cultural landscape. So this is where I will conclude. Basically, I wanted to show you two examples, one from Rajasthan and one from Maharashtra, and also showing how whether it's the inscription on the World Heritage List, where we have fortified area in the buffer zone, or it is through a conservation manual, but probably these could be the tools that can look into long-term conservation of military landscapes, specifically in the Indian subcontinent. Thank you.